Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mike Armstrong podcast show. And this lunchtime here in the UK, I'm joined by Rick Botelho, who's from the Beyond COVID leadership,
Servant leadership.
servant leadership blog.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. It was a bit of a mouth. It was a
It
bit of
is a
a long
mouthful.
word to remember. And obviously, you're a doctor. Where in the world are you, Rick?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay, Charlotte, North Carolina. Just to let you know, you've made it on my board as a red pin. Because when I speak to somebody from a different place, I stick it in the pin on my map on the world.
Okay, good.
So you'll forever live on my wall as a pin.
Okay. All right, okay. I'm a red pinhead, am I?
Yeah,
Do I have
that's
a
right.
choice of colors or not?
Just
Is
they're
that...
all red. It's just I
Oh,
got
I
one
see.
box,
Okay.
it locks in, and they're all red.
All right, okay.
But yeah, so tell us a little bit about what you've been doing during COVID, and what you were doing before then, and what led you to doing the blog.
Yeah, well, actually, this was back in right at the very beginning of the COVID crisis. I was working in primary care. Patient care dropped dramatically, and I was laid off of work. Now, that could only happen in the United States, but that's a separate story. So I actually used the time to take a step back from the crisis and look at things more from a distance, rather than being on the front lines of the COVID crisis and thinking about what you're just doing day to day, which is totally overwhelming. Allowed me to step back and take a sort of a big picture about why it is, particularly in the UK and in the United States, both countries have done extremely poorly in managing the COVID crisis compared to New Zealand and Southeast Asian countries like South Korea, Singapore, and China even. So, it's sort of, and not only that, the other big thing that happened about it was it showed how fragile our systems are in terms of revealing, racism. All the isms came out of the woodwork, Racism is at the forefront, but they're all interconnected. They're all injustices. And it really showed how inadequately we are creating a healthy culture, because we're not living in a healthy culture. We're living in a toxic culture. It's incredibly toxic.
Yeah.
And so,
on that, my thoughts are this is the most divisive that the nation and the world has been for a long time.
oh, absolutely.
It's all
Oh,
about
yeah.
sides, and everyone's right and the other side is wrong, and there's no grey area. It
Yeah.
seems to be two camps of black and white. 90% of people, the 10% of people I mix with, entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
live in the grey area.
Yeah, exactly.
But the rest of society is black and white. There's no middle ground.
Yeah, well, that's and what you just summarized very nicely is political fundamentalism.
Yeah.
It's a self-righteous, I'm right, you're wrong. And the problem with that thinking is that it just creates dysfunctional polarizations. And I call that the downward spiral into the amoral abyss of fake patriotism, because fake patriotism is essentially fundamentalist thinking. I'm right, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why things have become so divisive. And so I started thinking about, well, how can we begin to unravel that downward spiral and go in the opposite direction, which is how can we ascend the virtuous spiral of true patriotism? Now, the word patriotism is something that is very loaded to different people. Some people, particularly the people who dislike that word the most, unfortunately, will fall victims to those people who are good at manipulating patriotism. And Donald Trump is the best example of that in the world. He is, if you talk about a marketer, he's a marketing genius. I call him an emotional savant to the reptilian and limbic brains. In other words, he's able to manipulate people emotionally without them being aware that they're not using their capabilities of free thinking.
Yeah.
And so, people are just a mob.
Because he's quite simple. He speaks their language.
Yeah, exactly. And he's, you have to give credit where credit's due. He knows how to manipulate people. He's the greatest con man in the history of humankind and in democracy.
Yeah.
So here you have, and he's just inflaming things. He thrives on that because that is the only way he can win.
Yeah, because he's a megalomaniac. He wants to be the center of attention, the center of the universe.
Exactly. Well, he has what I call the evil triad of megalomania, sociopathy, and narcissism. Okay. You
Yeah.
put those three together, and it's a lethal combination.
Yeah.
So much so, I've developed a criteria on him called the fake patriot personality disorder. And I wrote a blog post on that well before this last blog post on that very issue. And the problem is we don't have a language for describing this. And we need to talk about the distinctions between true and fake patriotism in order to be able to deconstruct the deep state of fake patriotism, particularly in the United States. But it's not, the United States isn't the only country that's dealing with this demagoguery. So anyway, that's the backdrop, because the problem is fake patriotism is toxic to personal, population, and planetary health. It distracts us from doing the work that we really need to do, and it's a huge distraction. So that's the backdrop of this stuff.
Yeah.
You can't deal with this stuff unless you deal with the political stuff.
Yeah.
So in the blog post that I wrote, it's actually several blog posts, but the one I wrote this morning, actually between 3 and 5 a.m. in the morning, was I'm trying to develop a learning platform for educating people about how to deal with this. And what I could do is maybe just I haven't even published it yet, so I could show you this and use that as a way of talking about how we could use social media to launch this learning platform about how people can understand fake patriotism and what we can do to harness true patriotism in ways that actually enables us to promote personal, population, and planetary health.
Yeah.
So if I may, I'll just, this is, let me just see if I can just bring this up here.
Whilst you're bringing that up as well, obviously you said because you were employed before, and so it wasn't your job to market, if you like. So you're new to blogging and social media and all of that. And obviously, if you've got a really good message, which it sounds like you have, and obviously I haven't seen the education side of things yet, and obviously you'll probably go into a bit of it now, but you want to get out there and reach as many people as possible via as many platforms as possible when you've got something that's as important as the message you're trying to deliver.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I don't know if you can see my screen now. Can you see my screen?
Yeah,
Okay,
I can see it.
fine.
Yeah.
And let me just explain what this means, because servant thought leadership is something that is best epitomized by JFK quote, which he gave in his presidential address when he said, actually, the reason why I remember it was because my grandmother, who's Hawaiian, gave me a wallet when I was about 8 years old. And in the inside, it had a $50 figurehead of JFK. And on the other side, it had his famous quote, which was, ask not what you can do. Ask not what you can do. Let me see, get it right now. Ask.
That's not what you could do
What
for
you
your
can do for
country, but what your country
asking
can
to
do for you.
Exactly. Thank you for, at least you see, let's talk about a marketing message. That's over 50 years ago, and as a kid, you remember that, except I was being a bit of mumble-headed wombat this morning, having just got up. But anyway.
It's because of the lack of sleep.
Anyway, so that's what servant leadership is. But the thought leadership is giving, and development is, we have to actually cultivate that. And then the isms are all the racism, sexism, genderism, ageism, sizeism, you name it.
Social classism.
Exactly.
Brexitism, in and outism, wearing a maskism.
Yeah, exactly. It's all that. And so what I'm actually calling for is that we need an educational revolution, how we can scale up transformational learning experiences. So, in order to do that, we have to completely change how we learn. And it's almost the opposite of the way in which we've been taught. And I've described this term called a netnar. Now, a netnar is the opposite of the talking head of a webinar. In a netnar, actually, it's what some kids are experiencing in schools with what they call an inverted classroom strategy, which means that people actually have to come, having read something in advance, come to a Zoom meeting, using Zoom, where they come and they've actually reflected on it, they've written some notes about it, they have some questions that they want to pose, and then you break up into small groups, and you go through round robins of discussing the questions that you want to address. The advantage of this is that it really focuses on what you're most interested in, what you want to talk about, and you determine the learning outcome. It's not me as the teacher coming and say, these are the learning objectives, this is what you're going to do. This is very much a discovery zone where everybody comes together and they share collaboratively, how are we going to deal with this issue? So it's
it gets people used to thinking and navigating and discussing, rather than just learning facts and believing that a fact is either right or wrong.
Yes, exactly. You hit it on the nail, and that's the whole purpose of it. But it's not just one event; it's an ongoing, lifelong learning event.
Yeah.
And just as a sidebar, and this is not part of this blog post, but the other piece of it is what we need to cultivate is how people, individuals, organizations, even political parties come out and they actually state what their heroic credo of true patriotism is in terms of servant leadership. And that's where accountability.
What do you mean by servant leadership? Because servant to me and leadership don't seem to go well together. So what does that refer to?
Yeah, well, it's almost like an oxymoron. Well, it means that if you're trying to serve people to become the best that they can be in the job. So in other words, instead of me coming and saying, I know what needs to, this is what needs to be done, we have a shared understanding of where we're trying to go, and I'm trying to help you be the best that you can be in achieving what the goal, mission, or vision is. So it's the opposite.
I suppose I'm doing serve leadership at the moment then, because I'm helping a lot of people with free advice and information, etc. Because I'm trying to lead them to more knowledge to make the right decisions in their business.
Absolutely. You are a servant leader and you didn't even know that you were. I think you did, but
yeah, I sort of did. I just the terminology not so much with.
Well, I mean, there's a whole literature on this, so I try and keep it simple. But some people react just the way you do. You say, well, I'm not really a servant. Well, you could say service leader.
Yeah.
You're servicing others, but actually, I think saying a servant leader is stronger. And some people object to that word because I'm not going to be your servant. Sort of
yeah,
thing.
well, I would imagine the race, people who feel servants are, racist in some way. They're prejudiced or downbeaten. I probably wouldn't have too much issues using the word servant, but service would make more sense in my vocabulary,
Yeah, and I understand that. I think what's more important than specific words is the concept.
Yeah.
Which is that you're basically, to put it most simply, you're giving first, and then if you get, that's good. So it's the give and take equation. I mean, some people come and they're appearing to give, but they're really just taking. They're very manipulative. They give the appearance. We know.
Yeah, they're like wolves in sheep clothing, really. They're pretending to give, but really they're on the take.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas if you're truly altruistic and a servant leader, your primary, your sort of modus operandi is you give.
Yeah, you don't care whether you get back or not. That's not the hidden function or feature.
Well, there's the good karma of it, because sometimes people say, hey, Mike, you were very generous with your time today. You gave me so many great ideas. And I'll start talking about, have you heard of this guy called Mark Armstrong, who's a servant leader on social media? So, that's what happens when you're effective, that people cannot stop talking about you because you did something which was, beyond expectations.
Yeah. So, have you heard of a guy called Bob Berg?
Bob Berg. No, the name doesn't ring a bell.
Okay, well, he's written a few good top-selling books on this subject matter. One of them is called The Go-Giver.
The Go-Giver. Okay.
Yeah, and he's American, so you should check him out. I actually had him on my podcast a couple of weeks ago, but he's written a few books. He's got another one called Endless Referrals as well, which is all about, if you display a lot of value to other people, then they'll recommend other people to you.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's the idea of what, and the idea behind the NetNAR series is really to sort of create these learning networks, organization, and communities with the view of generating network power
Yeah.
to make change happen. Now, there's a fascinating book, which I don't know if you've come across, but it's by Joshua Ramo Cooper, who wrote a book called The Seventh Sense. And if you haven't, it's a tour de force. This guy is one of these extremely talented individuals. Back in 2012, he wrote a book called The Seventh Sense. And he was a journalist, and he was trying to understand how terrorists in the Middle East were so effective at gaining disproportionate power. And basically, he studied their ability to develop network power. And it's he took that experience and extrapolated it to current affairs, and basically said that if any organization doesn't understand how to harness network power in social media, they're going to be toast.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, if you take, Trump as the lead example of using the dark side of social media, he's been extremely effective. I mean, he's just had 100 tweets over this, event that happened in Wisconsin. I mean, he knows. His tweets are like a drug. He's feeding people's fake news addictions, and he is so effective at doing it. But the flip side of that is, just because, we can learn from the dark side and actually become more effective of unraveling that side, except we haven't done it yet. And that's why, speaking with you, Mike, gives me an opportunity to maybe get some more ideas about how to get the message out there. But the problem is that, it's much easier to give a short tweet, evoke the reptilian brain, and do a hit and run on a regular basis, so people are sort of, are not thinking about what's really going on.
It's like stoking the fire, isn't it? Or poking the bear. Or,
yeah, of course it is. Yeah, it's a very simple formula that's incredibly effective. The problem is, how can you disrupt that in a way that people get out of being, what I call pawn puppets, parrots, and pit bulls. People just fall into this sort of mindset, and they're singing the Greek chorus of their political talking points.
Well, I call them lemmings, and basically they're throwing themselves off a cliff.
Well, I wish they were, but unfortunately, they do have some flight.
Yeah, well, no, I think they're throwing themselves off the cliff, but they're taking the world with them at the same time.
Well, that's part of the problem. And the question is, how can we reverse that dynamic? I mean, that's what the issue is.
Yeah.
So anyway, this blog post here, I haven't quite finished it yet, but I talk about something here, which is a very important concept, which is cultural humility. And I'll just read it to you, because to me, this, without cultural humility, it's impossible for people to actually understand why this is so difficult and why it's so difficult to make changes. And unfortunately, it's a bit of a mouthful. So I'll break it up, and you can ask questions along the way, because it's, my blog posts aren't directed towards the general public. I have to sort of think this through and appeal to other leaders, and then repurpose this for, a general audience. Because you can't go from simplicity to complexity. You have to start with something complex, and then you have to, simplify it so the messages come across that people say, "Oh, I get it." I'll give you one simple message, although it's not. Is how can we unite the divide with truth, justice, equity, and freedom? I think that's the challenge we're facing, is how can we unite the divide? And we need truth, justice, equity, and freedom. We need all four of those things. And if you miss one out, it doesn't work very well. Anyway, so that's
I got a simple one, which I've been using and saying for a while, which is, we need leaders that are willing to build bridges, not walls.
Yeah. It's interesting. That's a great one. The thing about bridge building, though, the limitation of that metaphor is that it it implies that you can actually get people who are fundamentalists on the opposite side of the spectrum to speak together. And unfortunately, as long as people stay in that state, they're not going to. They don't. So it's useful for those people who are sort of in the what I would call the middle majority. But for the extremists, it doesn't have any. So the metaphor I like to use actually is the river metaphor, which is we have the middle majority have to float down the middle of the stream and leave the extremists on the shorelines.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Because what happens now, we've got extremists controlling the middle stream of the river,
Yeah.
and we have to take over that position and let them go to the sidelines, and then they can decide, do you want to stay there or do you want to come back in the river and be part of humanity?
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's I like metaphors too, and I think metaphors have strengths and weaknesses, and I think the bridge metaphor has a lot of strengths, but to me, the major limitation in dealing with political extremists that it's naive to think you can get these extremists to talk together. What you can do is you can mobilize the middle majority to come together in such a way that the people on the fringes are no longer on center stage.
Yeah, well, I would say if you get yourself a very wide bridge with a lot of traffic going back and forth all of the time, and you'll get people from either side
Yeah,
visiting the other side, yeah, learning a bit about the other side and then taking it back. And if you can make the bridge wide enough that there's so much back and forth, then the
yeah,
extremes aren't so far away from each other. The distance from one side to the other has been
yeah.
closed by the fact that some people are actually always on the bridge.
Yeah. Well, I think there's lots of way of playing around with both metaphors. Just what
Yeah,
you just said evoked for me was more of a the river's going in one direction, but you can meander. If you imagine you've got ships and boats, and
yeah,
the people in the canoes can go back and forth. The big ships down the middle have to stay there because they'll run aground if they deviate too far from the middle, because the depth of water is not sufficient for them.
yeah,
So, but the idea is that you have to have people line moving in a direction. I mean, sometimes people are going to turn around and go upstream. There's no question about it. People are going to
yeah.
swim in the opposite direction, which makes life more difficult. But sometimes, it's worthwhile doing that. If you feel strongly on something, you might want to try and see if you can bend the river and in the other direction, so to speak,
Yeah. Well,
which is not.
part of your metaphor there I quite like. So the bit I quite like, about the big ships, not meandering too far either way. So
Yeah,
I much believe in politics.
yeah,
I'm not a massive fan of politics because it's always about sides. It's always about left and right, and
yeah, yeah,
commercial, conservative and socialism and
yeah,
whatever. Republicans, democracy,
yeah.
and basically I think the big things in life should be a bit of everything. They should be liberal, they should be left, they should be right. They
Yeah,
should have a
exactly.
mixture of people in there to make sure that they're looking after everybody's needs.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's the limitation of either or thinking. It's
Yeah,
both and thinking,
yeah.
it's both and.
And
And
what
one,
else? Yeah, it's the
yeah.
two sides and the other 10 sides or
Yeah. So
20
it's both,
sides or
yeah, it's both
whatever. Yeah,
and not, yeah, not either or. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
So anyway, so you're getting the gist of it. And then the issue of cultural humility, which I think is probably just a brief mention, and we could sort of start talking about, well, given what I've presented to you, is I love to, have a conversation with you about, well, how to, leverage this. And I've got ideas, I'm already planning things, and I can certainly go into it. But cultural humility is an interpersonal and mindful stance of unconditional acceptance, non-judgmentalism, and positive regard. Those last three things that I just mentioned actually come from Rogerian humanistic psychology, going back to the 1950s. This has been around for a long time.
yeah,
That's characterized by curiosity, civility, equanimity. This self-aware stance involves taking the non-knowing and the one-down position to learn from and better understand others with different cultural backgrounds and experiences. And if people were grounded in cultural humility opposed to cultural hubris, then, you know, we would be a long way down the river, so to speak, of flowing into the ocean of humanity.
Yeah.
So, you know, that to me, that's one of the underpinnings of this, is how to do that.
Yeah.
And the other word that gets sort of is misunderstood is the difference between equality and equity. And I think it's really important to make that distinction, because we you know, if you've got kids, and I don't know if you have kids, but you know, you can't treat all your kids equally because they have different needs.
Yeah.
So it's a balance as a parent. Well, how can I treat them fairly, equally, but I have to treat them differently because they have different needs? Well, equity is that, which is, how do we give everyone fair opportunities of achieving their highest potential of healthy well-being and human flourishing? It's as simple as that. And, you know, when you put it like that and you describe it, you know, it's kind of difficult to disagree with that statement. But interesting enough, that word is often associated with, you know, what I call leftism, which is, you know, accusations of being a Marxist and a Leninist and, you know, et cetera, of socialism. And
Yeah.
so the word gets disparaged and associated with, you know, with left-wing politics. But I think it's apolitical. I don't think it's left or right. And if you can get left and right people to agree about what the purpose of equity is, then, you know, then we'd have a, you know, um, uh, uh, we wouldn't have the degree of toxicity that we have in our culture today. So we've lost our civility. We've just lost our ability to get along, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, you know, that whole sentence to me, you know, about cultural humility. To me, you know, that can be summed up with, you know, not one word necessarily doesn't cover all of that, but it
No, no,
covers
of
a big
course not.
chunk of
No.
that, and that's understanding.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is. Absolutely.
or what I call it, emotional intelligence.
Yeah, both of those, absolutely. I think that those are essential parts of that, unequivocally. But it's also, I mean, if you imagine that the primary curriculum, you know, I'll just go off on a little bit of a tangent here. But if you can imagine our curriculum in schools was based on cultural humility, and I just came across this organization, and you might want to interview him. I just had a great conversation with him. He runs an organization called Equip Our Kids, and it's a movement that's being developed that is addressing one of the major deficiencies in our educational system, which is on social and emotional development of kids, as
Yeah.
being a core aspect of that, which is about understanding and emotional intelligence. And it's about understanding yourself as well. I mean, it's difficult to understand and have an emotional intelligence unless you understand yourself. So you have to have an understanding of your own emotions and self-understanding to be more effective at understanding others and their emotions.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, did you have his name or business name, or how would I
Yeah,
find him?
yeah, I'll sign. You know, I'm just having I hate to. I'm just having it'll pop into my
It'll
head, but
pop
I
in your
was
head at some
as I
point. Yeah,
got as I was No, he would be a great person. I can make an introduction to him actually.
yeah. Okay, yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. Just by the way, did I get in touch with you, or you with me? How did this come out? Because I'm
You know,
very active and I can't remember
no,
all
no,
of
no.
it.
I understand. If you're super connected as I am doing, it's like where in the internet world did this happen? It was on speed networking.
Oh, that's right.
Um,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, remember, and there was the other Brit there as well. Who?
Mark was there because I invited him because I went the week before.
Oh, I see. Okay, all right. Okay, there was Mark. He was quite a character too. I was hoping to be able to connect with him because he seemed to be you know, in the land of social media wizardry. So.
Yeah, well, actually, Mark is a WhatsApp wizard. He got 140 groups, but he don't use a lot of other platforms, whereas I use them all.
Oh,
So,
I
but
see.
Mark's a massive virtual power network, a connector of people, same as me as well. So
Yeah.
you should connect with Mark.
Well, it'd be good to, because you know, the thing is, I only have so much time, and it's a question of where can you, I mean, what it comes down to is how can you get a message out that gets amplified, and, you know, goes viral. I mean, that's what
Yeah,
it comes down to. And with the topic that I'm dealing with, this is not a simple thing
No.
to try and get across. It's much easier to tweet rage hate than it
Yeah.
is to actually tweet something that makes people think.
Yeah, well, I've been sharing a hashtag positive coronavirus news for a long time. It just won't get its legs.
You know, it's
Whereas
amazing.
if I was to put a hashtag like coronavirus conspiracy creates hatred or something, it would just be all over the world by now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, it does. You know, you know, that's where field testing these things to whether you can catch a wave or not. And you know, that's the reason why I'm you know, speaking with you, given your experiences of working in this area, is you know, is you know, generating some ideas, strategies about you know, where to go with this. I mean, I'll tell you what I am doing, so you have a bit of a background about how I'm working this. I'm predominantly working through LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I'll just give you one example of this that just happened last night. I read this report from the National Academy of Medicine that came out with this whole notion about how to educate the health professions about how to deal with the isms. You know, healthcare professionals need to be aware of their own isms in providing care to people. So you know, I read the paper and it used the word ism, which, and then I contacted the lead author through LinkedIn and said, you know, I loved your paper. It had to be short because you got a character limit in reaching out to people. Read your paper, thought it was great. Here's a link. Would love to connect. And a couple of hours later, you know, she accepted my invitation. So, you know, those types of connections take a lot of work, and it's one-on-one. But you know, it's connecting to leaders and organizations, because what I'd like to be able to do is offer this course that I'm describing here to organizations, so that you know, it's designed in such a way that people can, you know, pick it up and run with it. I mean, they need some help, but I'm trying to develop a scalable learning platform where, you know, I'm taking the role of train the trainers, so to speak.
Yeah.
And not,
providing the content.
yeah, providing the content, the learning experience. But then, you know, as I described before, if you learned center and you let people, you know, speak top of mind, I tell you, I ran one course of this with a group of, it was a group of humanists, actually. And I mean, you couldn't stop them talking. You know, I mean, they just, you know, it was like, lighting a fire, and just, you know, they wanted to talk about having read the materials, they came with it. You know, I learned a lot from how to conduct the sessions and give some better guidelines about how to, you know, organize small groups, because people break up into small groups of maybe 3 to 5 people, and they have about 20 minutes or so. I mean, there's lots of different ways of doing it, but it's sort of somewhat like the speed networking event that we went to.
Yeah.
But, you know, and then you go to another group and then to another group. And ideally what would happen is that even prior to coming to the event, they would write on, you know, the lead blog post, or as I am doing in this proposal here, I'm trying to get 3 or 4 opinion leaders to come to this, write a blog post in advance in response to it, come up with one evocative question that they want to pose to their colleagues, and for them to share them in advance so they know roughly where people are coming from, but then come to a session where they would then have like 2 minutes to summarize their their reflection notes or the blog post, and then pose a question that they want to address in you know 15 minutes. And each of those experts have the opportunity, as that's going on, there's a fishbowl technique where, you know, people observing this, and that people can then, as the event is going on, people will be invited to write comments on their LinkedIn article about their reactions to it. So the idea is really how to connect the dots around something that's important and keep on amplifying it over and over again. That's the idea, anyway.
Yeah, so here's some sort of strategies really, because you're new to social media. That what you're trying to find is the one-to-manys, yeah, because obviously you can spend a lot of time speaking one-to-one and not really get anywhere quickly, like yeah.
Yeah,
So
right.
what you want to do is you want to research and find anyone who's podcasting on this area,
Yeah,
yeah, anyone who's got magazines or educational platforms on this
yeah,
area, yeah, and you're looking to speak to those people who have already got the infrastructure in place, and
yeah,
you can then pass the course on to them, and then they can communicate it to the people they're already communicating to.
yeah,
So you're looking for people, like myself, I've got a podcast, so I can put it on my podcast. But you're looking
yeah,
for higher profile people than me, if you like, to get there quicker. So you're looking for people who've got millions of listeners on their podcast now. But with it being a niche topic, you might not find anyone who's got this. So you might have to develop your own platform to be that person. Like, yeah.
yeah,
So it all depends. But yeah, I'd look at places that are, like you said, that organization that I've already mentioned. How do people deal with isms? People, organizations that already have an equality, and a social, economic, what do they call it, social responsibility
yeah,
system, where they're all about equality and diversity and all that. You want to hit as many large organizations who are involved in the training space and
yeah,
try and get them to add the course to their offering,
yeah,
or publicize you to their audience, or put you in the magazine or whatever that's communicating to these people. Also, I'd spend a lot of time looking for groups, especially on Facebook, but in LinkedIn as well,
yeah,
but groups of like-minded people as well. So I'd look at what infrastructure there already was in this area that you
yeah,
can um, tap into, if you like, yeah. And then, if depending on how I looked and what I'd seen, if there wasn't a lot, I'd create the niche groups for, I'd have to build them. So
yeah,
so so there's a few different strategies depending on what you can find.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But a lot of it starts with Google and the search engine.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and looking for what you can find and looking what's there. But if
yeah,
you used to, like me, I think down verticals.
yeah,
So I'm thinking about, okay, who are the people who are already in this space, who are already, so the podcasters, the YouTubers, the Facebook groupers, the WhatsApp groupers, um the TikTokers, all of the different people. I would be going into all of those platforms and just typing in keywords and doing a bit of
yeah,
searching and just seeing what is there. And then if
yeah,
you can find communities that already exist, all you've got to do is join them and share your message and your content and
yeah,
etc. If they don't exist, then that's a harder job, but it just means you've got to think of, okay, shall I be that community? So I'll be the Facebook group that everyone joins into if they're interested in this subject matter, yeah?
yeah,
Or sometimes you think about, okay, what are the synergy groups? So the synergy groups may be, diversification, equity, humanitarianism,
hmm,
philanthropists, yeah? So
yeah,
there's like, they may not be bang on people in this niche, but there
yeah,
could be people in the spin-off synergy niches
yeah.
who may want to get involved, like.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges really sort of trying to work on what the lead strategy is. You have to start somewhere, and so there's the long game and the short game.
Yeah,
The short game is sort of like the simple things, like going to Facebook, whatever, which I've done, and I found that there isn't a lot of it's a lot of short interactions. They're not long interactions.
yeah,
It's really made for the sort of fast thinking brain and whatever. So unless I find a group where they're highly cohesive and the message what I'm bringing resonates with theirs. I've tried to do that, but I haven't, other than getting a few likes and stuff like that,
yeah.
it's
Well,
so
I play the long game, Lussie. So I
yeah,
like
yeah,
going around the hard way rather than shortcuts or easy ways.
yeah,
I don't it all depends on what like I've been in sales where I had to do targets. And so that was all about hitting results.
yeah,
So there you've got to, speed things along and not let things be organic, but you've got to sort of force them a bit, yeah.
yeah,
But for what I'm doing now in my self-employment and getting my message out there now, I'm not on a rush. It's a life target. It's a life goal. It's not It's not
Yeah.
I got to do X amount by this week or that
Yeah.
week or whatever. So I can be a lot more subtle. So I play the long game. So
Yeah.
for me, it's about building up that audience. So it's about being the thought leader, if you like, finding the tribe and building the tribe. The tribe may have to come one at a time or whatever, but they'll
Yeah.
build up over a long period of time, and they'll be loyal because of the organic nature of how they stuck to the leader, if you like,
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's important. But then if you're going to do that sort of thing, although I'm playing the long game, I use efficiency and strategy and technology to make
Mhm.
sure that the long game's not an eternal game, and
Yeah.
actually
Right.
you will get traction quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, for example, things like, so I used to blog a lot because I
Mhm.
could blog and link it to all my social media. So I was blogging and advertising my blog at the same time in as
Right.
many platforms as I wanted to link to my blog. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I used to use WordPress because that was the best platform for linking to social media. So
Yeah.
instead of me having to grab a post and share it everywhere, I used to just automatically share it everywhere by posting the post.
Yeah.
So I used to use WordPress then as like my Hootsuite or my buffer, which
Yeah.
are like auto schedulers.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
in addition to auto scheduling my social media, I'm also auto scheduling the blog post to go out at
Yeah.
certain times of day or days of night or days of the week or whatever, when you think your audience is able to read it,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
sort of, so I did blogging for 15 odd years because that was the best. I still do it now, but that was my main focus because it was the best way that I could get my content and my message out
Yeah.
to as many places as possible, as efficiently as possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the reason I moved to doing podcasting and YouTubing now is because the market, the mass market, that's where it's at now. That's where the consumers at. They're
Yeah.
at
Right.
they're at audio and video rather than words,
Good.
because
Yeah.
the word market is saturated so much. Yeah,
Yeah.
that people are
Yeah.
finding less and less time to read and observe. Not necessarily all of your thought leaders who will read your blog post on LinkedIn or on
Yeah.
a blog, but the
Yeah.
people who aren't thought leaders, if you like, and educators, but the people who are consumers, if you
Yeah.
like,
Right.
they won't take that information
No.
on so much,
Definitely.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so you find ways of, like, audio in it or video in it and making it short, that keep it simple stupid approach, which
Yeah.
works well for Donald,
Yeah.
because the stupid people need something stupid that they can understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so if you dumb it down for them, but as long as the message is in there. So, like, for example, with your statement about the humanity, if you tell people, we're trying to make people understand others better, or we're trying to make people, more empathy, show more empathy, more
Yeah.
awareness of other people and their emotions and feelings, etc. That
Yeah.
might be how the dumb people, unfortunately, the people who aren't willing to educate themselves much, either in school or out of school. So
Yeah.
therefore, then maybe they're not dumb. That's a bit harsh to them, but they're just uninspired to learn more. So
Exactly.
nobody, because if you've got a good teacher in school, they'll inspire you and you want to keep learning. If
Yeah.
you are inspired in a subject matter or whatever, you want to keep learning, but they've
Yeah.
been uninspired. So I would say they're probably the uninspired. Yeah,
Yeah.
they've never
Yeah.
had good teachers. They haven't had good parents. They haven't had good opportunities to learn, and so they've not taken them, and so
Yeah.
they're uneducated, and therefore they're easily manipulated because they haven't got their own brains
Right.
so much. They haven't got their own thought processes and thought patterns
Mm.
and experience of knowledge and information and working problems out and all these sort of things. So
Mm.
they're easy to be manipulated by people who are control freaks,
Yeah.
megalomaniacs,
Yeah.
narcissists,
Exactly. Yeah.
who are going to just take them over and tell them, well, this is right and this is wrong, and go and do my bidding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, it goes back to that, what I was, the program that equip our kids. I mean, the deep root cause for this is really educational equities, that people, the people who have the least, who often deserve the most, get the least, and the people who have the most get the most,
Yeah.
I mean, that's that's the way things are, unfortunately. So, if people haven't had the opportunity to develop those skills, then it's such a waste. I mean, unfortunately, our educational system is very poor at doing this.
Yeah.
And
Well,
we have
it's very fact based, isn't it? And they
totally,
used to. they started doing a bit of like assessing, the equation, how you got there,
Yeah.
because how you get there is the important bit. As long as sometimes you can get the answer wrong, but as long as you know
Yeah,
the
you
right
know
way about going
the,
about it, then at
yeah,
least 9 times out of 10 you'll get it right, even if
yeah,
you got it wrong that one time. As long
yeah,
as you know the process. But
yeah.
but yeah, it's all very. This is why to me it shouldn't be exam. How much you can cram in your brain and then be tested on how
Oh,
much you remembered of it.
yeah. No, of course.
It should all be about how you fact find, how you self educate, how you listen to different sides and come up with your opinions.
Mhm.
That's what you should be assessed, if you like, and that's why for years and years and years, entrepreneurs and business owners have always said the education system doesn't bring people who can work in the real world into my business.
Yeah,
They're people who can remember facts and information, but none of those facts and
exactly.
information are relevant, and
Yeah,
they need to demonstrate how they go about solving a problem, a real life situation, a problem with a customer
exactly.
or a problem
Yeah,
with a
exactly.
product, or how they go about thinking for themselves and solving problems and creating and innovating and all these sort of things, which are
Yeah,
the tools that are lacking in society,
yeah,
and
exactly.
they're the tools that I excel in because I spent a lifetime learning to
Yeah.
excel in them.
Yeah, exactly. It's
It's,
lifelong learning. It's lifelong learning.
yeah,
Absolutely. I mean, this is the exact purpose of this blog post, is that there isn't an end to the answer. You know what I mean?
no,
It's an ongoing,
yeah.
struggle in terms of how to
Well,
deal with things.
they're the things that humanity needs to constantly work on to improve itself. And
Exactly. This is
humanity,
the-
as long as
Yeah,
humanity exists,
yeah,
the puzzle will never end. It's the 1,000-word puzzle will turn into a 10,000 one, and into
yeah,
a
exactly.
million-piece one. It'll just keep expanding and growing as the universe does, and as the
Yeah,
population does,
yeah,
until whatever the next step looks like that people don't know what it looks like.
yeah.
You
Well,
know,
just coming back, the guy's name is Jay Levin, by the way.
Jake Levin,
Oh, Jay,
Jay like
yeah, Levin, and
Jay
that's
Levin.
Levan. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
okay. I'm gonna
and
have to shoot. I am, unfortunately, because I got a 2 o'clock meeting. But we can either reconvene,
mhm.
yeah, or yeah, because I think there's some more I can help you with,
Okay.
So we
Okay.
probably should reconvene. But we've been an hour already, and
Oh, good grief. Well, there you go. Time flies by quickly,
time,
doesn't
time flies when you're having fun, and when you're having a good debate and a good conversation, and with
it?
people who understand, even if they're not coming from the same perspective, they understand the other perspective. So I think we
Exactly.
coming from
Yeah.
a very similar perspective on life and an
Yeah.
understanding of humanity. But
Mm.
I love having a civil conversation with somebody who sees the opposite end of the pen than I do, or the back of the reverse
Oh,
side of it.
exactly.
Like, no,
It's embracing diversity. That's what it is.
yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
it's embracing diversity.
I'm being.
Absolutely.
I'm somebody who's been in sales all my life, so I've always had to put myself in other people's shoes, not in
Oh,
mine.
exactly.
It's
Oh,
not,
yeah, I know you do.
it's not
So let
about.
Yeah,
It's not
exactly.
about me. It's about them and what they want.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And a lot of people don't even appreciate the importance of that.
No,
Absolutely.
no,
Let's
no,
let
exactly. But when you spend, it's like most people. They build their website, they put their own language on it. It's like, well, it's not you that's buying it.
Yeah, no,
It's your
exactly.
customers, so you put their language on it, not
Yeah.
yours.
Yeah, well, at the moment you have to develop your own language first, and then you have to translate your language. And
Yeah,
I haven't reached that point yet. I have to start thinking about, because I have to think out my own thoughts before I can think about, well, how can I make this accessible to a larger audience?
yeah,
But
yeah,
I
yeah,
do have
definitely.
I do have a long game plan, which is more important than the short game plan. So
Yeah.
I'm working on that. But
But I always look at as well, where's the stream? It's much easier to divert the stream than build one.
yeah, oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. That coming back to the metaphor, you want to get in the right river, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And
Like,
go in the right direction as well.
yes,
And
yeah,
not go
exactly.
off.
The right river, going in the right direction with the right fish population.
Exactly, exactly, exactly.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure getting you on the podcast. And actually, I've got a 15-minute chat, and then I'm free for 3/4 an hour. So if you want to, we can reconvene in 15 minutes.
Okay. All righty. Okay, we can do that. All right.
Okay. All
Okay,
right
Mike.
then. Cheers.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Okay. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back again. We had a quick pause and changed some t-shirts, and we're ready to go again. I just had another call I had to take. This conversation was longer than an hour, so it's resuming now. And how are you doing again today, Rick? You okay?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thank you.
Good,
Doing
good,
well.
good. And obviously you changed T-shirts, so we'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah, we were talking about social media, weren't we? And so I was talking about blogging. So the reason I blogged for all that time was so I can feed that information. But obviously the demand for content is more in video and audio now.
Right.
And so now I'm mostly doing my podcast because with a podcast, it's easier to set up and quicker and everything to actually publish the content than it is on YouTube. It's quicker, yeah. And you haven't got to, always worry about. I don't worry about what I look like and all that anyway. But you haven't got to worry. There's other things you haven't got to worry about. For example, I do all my YouTube content is recorded from Zoom, so I got to do it on my laptop. You can't record on the phone, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm into
Right.
efficiency, so I do most things on my phone because I can do it like all day long, and I don't feel like I'm working because I'm just doing what other people do when they come home from work, which is go
Yeah.
on their phone, engage with people on social media and all that. So I can work all the hours under the sun, and psychologically wise, I'm not working. I'm just on my phone playing around. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas if I sit in front of my laptop, after 12 hours or 8 hours, I'll have had enough.
Yeah.
So I'll only be able to do 8 or 12 hours, whereas I can do about 16 hours on my phone.
Yeah.
But obviously I'm doing a lot on my laptop now. I used to do 90% the phone, 10% the laptop, but now it's probably more 50-50 because I
Right.
have to do stuff on the laptop. Then I take a break and I watch a bit of telly and work on my phone, but that's my break time then, and I'm not really working.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which allows you to get that longevity.
Yeah.
So the video has to be done on the laptop. So I only do that percentage of my day, usually when I got dual chats, or if I want to go on, I'm just, when you first have a YouTube channel, you can't go live. You can only do recorded stuff. But I've just hit the live milestone. It's either 1,000 or 10,000 views of your videos. Can't remember. But anyway, I went on yesterday and I pressed the live button. I don't know why, divine intervention or whatever, because I don't check all my numbers and that. I keep an eye on what videos have done what and
Yeah.
all of that, but I'm not on them all the time. I got too many videos, too much content, and I'm producing too much stuff to do the analysis at the moment. I'll sit back and do the analysis once I know I've got so much content out there that I can take a break for a bit,
Yeah.
But so I've only got the laptop on every now and then. But obviously now I'm doing lives, I'll probably have it on a little bit more. But the phone is in my hand all the time. So every now and then, if I have a subject matter that pops into my head or whatever, I can just press a button in an app on my phone and start recording.
Yeah.
So it's very much easier. And then once you
So
actually publish it,
when you do that, are you just talking, you just recording yourself,
yes.
or on your phone? On your
Yeah,
phone.
just myself on the phone. So it's just like talking into a dictaphone or whatever with your
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
thoughts, but
Yeah.
you're recording it and then publishing it,
Okay.
And
So
then when it goes to the app platform, see the key with the app platform is that once I publish it on that app platform, the app platform does the marketing for me because it publishes it into iTunes, Google, Spotify, all the places where people go looking for podcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why podcasting is really work, because even when I was doing blogging, there was no one in WordPress or in the blogging system that was sharing my blog posts to a chart that other people can find it in.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
out of curiosity, in terms of maybe we could just take what you're doing now as an example. So once you've recorded this,
Yeah.
this recording will then go up onto your YouTube channel, right?
Yeah. So what happens is once you finish a Zoom call, so I just paused this one, but if I'd have ended the call, it would have ended the video because it's automatic. Yeah. And what happens is then you get a video land on your desktop in a couple of minutes when it's downloaded.
Yeah.
Okay. It's got video and it's got audio. So actually what I do then is I got my Anchor website up. Yeah. Constantly as a tab, so I can just drag the audio to the tab, to the uploader file, and it'll upload, and then I can put text, copy and paste text or write text to describe the episode, and then publish it, and then the Anchor app sends it whatever it sends, and then with YouTube, you drag the video, you pop it into the video uploader into your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it uploads. It takes about 10 minutes, so I'll go and do something else. I'll work on something else, and then when it's uploaded, I've then got the content because the Anchor audio uploads quicker. So I've got the text then from the Anchor app, which I copy and paste and stick into the video one because it's the same description. Yeah. And once the video's uploaded, and then from both platforms, not only is YouTube then sharing it to whoever's looking for that content and Anchor to whoever's looking for the podcast,
Yeah.
but within each platform, there's a share button, which means you can actually share it to your LinkedIn, your Facebook, your Twitter, and various other places,
Yeah.
your blog, and all of that. So that's
So
what I do then is I reshare the content, or I
yeah.
share a link to the content to all the other places.
Okay. So in terms of doing that, are you using a platform to coordinate it going out on the different social media platforms? I know there are things out there.
No, I don't. So I do use some of those platforms. So if
Yeah.
I do stuff on my phone,
Yeah.
so because I'm using the laptop to do the recording and to upload the audio and the video, I
Yeah.
then do the sharing from the laptop, right?
Yeah.
So on YouTube, it allows you to share to about 10 places. I only share to about 5 of them, 6 of them I think I share to, because the other 4 I haven't got, right? But
Yeah.
the 6 places I share to are Blogger, which is a blogging platform for Google, who owns
Yeah.
YouTube, which is why
Yeah.
it's linked to that. I mostly use WordPress for my blogs, but excuse me, but I use Blogger because I created some Blogger blogs just so I had another place, because the share button was there. I thought, well, I might as well have another place to share the videos to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it allows you to share to Blogger and Tumblr, which are 2 blogging platforms. So
Yeah.
I've got both the Blogger and a Tumblr blog. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it allows you to share to Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest,
Mm-hmm.
and no Instagram.
Right.
And that's it. Yeah. So you share it, they're the 6 then. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then on the Anchor app, it allows you to share it to Facebook, Twitter, somewhere else. But actually, what I tend to do with the Anchor app is
Yeah.
on the online platform, actually, it hasn't got good sharing features. So I've got the app on my phone as well as the website on my laptop. So so what I tend to do is I upload the file into the Anchor website and I save it as a draft.
Mm-hmm.
Then I open it up in my phone and publish it. Because once you're in the app allows you more sharing functions. So you'll often find apps and websites aren't always the same. Some
Yeah.
have got more features than others. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just depends. So I like to test everything I use on
Yeah.
all platforms to see which is the best one to use it on. Because I'm all
Yeah.
about efficiency. So it's about which one you can use the quickest and the best and get the most bang for your buck, the most
Yeah.
impact with. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I go
So,
onto the Anchor app, and then from the Anchor app, so within
yeah.
a smartphone, once you hit the share button, it pops up with all the apps that you have in that phone.
Mm-hmm.
It'll usually have like 4 or 5 that are open, and then it'll say more, and you click the more button, and it'll have whatever apps you have in your phone that are open and connected. And because I have a lot of apps, it basically means that I can share it in lots of places.
Yeah.
So that's when I share it then I'll share it live or real time to like LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. And then I'll share it to my Hootsuite and my Buffer app to go out later. So it's getting a second wave.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. I get
And,
that. Mm-hmm.
and so that's what I do. And then because I'm going for en masse quantity at the moment, just quantity, quantity, quantity. So
Mm-hmm.
I produced like 580 episodes, I think,
Mm-hmm.
since April on my
Yeah.
podcast. That's
Mm.
actually 580 because I do compilations as well. So I've done about 30 compilation episodes and 580 live episodes.
Yeah. What's the duration of the episodes? I mean, I'm sure they vary in length. Some are short and some are longer. But
That's
what?
right. Yeah. So my chats are always 45 minutes to maybe an hour, maybe hour and a half, 2. I've had a couple hour and a half, couple 2, but I try and keep them 45 minutes or an hour normally.
Yeah.
This one's going to be about hour and a half. Like, yeah.
Yeah, but out of curiosity, how do you know how much people listen to it? I mean, how do you get any data
There's
on that?
numbers on there. There's stats on the app, so you got analytics basically, like you have on most social media. You can see how many people are listening to it, etc. Yeah, I've had 6,000 downloads, which is episode downloads since I started. Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So and obviously some people have millions. So it's early days, yeah, but 6,000 is better than none. Like, you know what I
yeah,
mean? So
yeah,
it's not a stepping stone. I don't do things for the numbers. I do it because of the thing I'm doing. But obviously,
yeah,
I come from a sales and marketing background, so the
yeah,
numbers are important as well because you just think, well, what's the point of me reaching one person when I can reach 100 or 1,000 or 10,000?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it is about the numbers really, but I'm never chasing numbers. I'm chasing the process. If you do the process right, the process will get you to numbers.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
in terms of the you're expanding your reach, then what sort of feedback are you getting back? I mean, what's the other return on investments of doing
Well,
that?
obviously you get engagement then, yeah. So
Yeah.
obviously, you get, because I'm building a tribe. So
Right.
longer term, the benefit will be once people are invested in me and my information and my knowledge, then they'll be interested in my book or my courses or my speaking gigs or whatever, you
Yeah.
know. So for me, I mean, I'm investing in the long-term economic benefit and legacy impact of building a tribe and having people who are following you, and you're
Right.
educating and you're helping and all of that, So I want to sell out, concert, like concert arenas and stadiums and stuff, like, what I mean, with a lot of people. So I'm
Yeah.
building a tribe, and what size venue I end up speaking to my tribe in will be dependent on the size of the tribe, you know
Yeah.
and
Right.
some people resonate with other people more. There's lots of people sharing. Not as much people got as much knowledge and information about all the areas as I do, but
Yeah.
like I share quite a lot of personal development as well. And there's loads of people in the personal development space, and a lot of people share the same sort of information. But it's just who people resonate with more. That can
Yeah.
come down
Right.
to language, and it can come down to vocabulary and quotes and impact, and there's all sorts of
Right.
things that have that effect.
Yeah. Right. Right.
But so sometimes, sometimes if you want a message to be shared, but you're not the best messenger, sometimes
Mm.
you're better off finding the best messenger.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I've met people who got massive ambitions in life to be an educator, but they haven't got the charisma or the razzmatazz to pull it off.
Yeah. Right.
Just like there's loads of politicians who want to be prime minister or they want to be, the president, but
Yeah.
they're never going to get the votes.
Yeah. Right.
And some of
Right.
them may be better at the job, but
Yeah.
part of the job is communication. Some of it is
Oh,
impact. It's
yeah.
leaving an effect. It's getting votes. It's a popularity contest.
Yeah.
There has
Yeah.
to be a bit of X factor or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So sometimes, it's like in most tech businesses, there's always the front mouthpiece and the back end, developer.
Yeah. Right.
You think
Yeah.
of like
And
Apple and
deliver it.
Microsoft and
Yeah.
all of these sort of Google and Facebook, and
Yeah.
there's usually a front guy and a back guy, because the back guy would never make the front guy.
Just lost you.
Yeah, you come back then. You come back.
Yeah.
You,
Okay.
you froze and then come back. But
Yeah.
yeah. So that would be it. So it's about, if you believe in the message, then and you are capable of delivering the message, then you deliver the message. If, for
Yeah.
example, your message is getting lost because of, it's a great message, but just people aren't hearing it, they're not resonating with it, or
Yeah.
they're
Right.
not, then you need to sometimes look at it. It was just like there are amazing bands like Queen or whatever, but they, when Freddie Mercury died or whatever, they needed to get another frontman. They were an amazing band, but they couldn't really function without that mouthpiece.
Yeah. Right.
But
Exactly.
they had to
Yeah.
bring someone else in,
Yeah.
So,
No,
so
I get the gist of it. It's sort of because I'm sort of more focused on LinkedIn and blogging, and that's where your history was.
yeah,
And I can see the value of that. The thing is, my niche market maybe is more, coming back to the long game. We
yeah,
talked about the long game, and I think some of the strategies you're describing could be very useful. I mean, for example, that the piece that I didn't finish on what I was showing you online was actually for a live event with 3 to 4 people doing an interview, setting it up. All that could clearly be set up for publishing
yeah,
as a way of getting other people to do the same thing.
yeah,
My long game, though, and I don't, I mean, I've only been doing this for about 5 months now, but I'm working towards it. Is to try and find, an organization, a lead organization. I want to work. I want to work across different organizations, but I still need a lead organization to
yeah,
sort of, be the spearhead one to connect with other organizations.
Yeah,
So
I would try and find, that's the key. The key people you can find is if you can find somebody who's offering synergy education. They got
yeah,
an infrastructure of online and offline places of delivering
yeah,
messages,
yeah,
and they have similar messages to yours, but not
yeah,
the same. Yeah.
right,
Then you license your content to them, and let's let them crack on. It's just another set of courses that they offer then.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah? And then
Well,
I would just Google
the other
search
thing,
all of that. I'd
yeah,
find someone.
yeah. Well, the other thing is that I'm coming from a slightly different perspective, which is, it's really, I'm not, I'm not in it for the money, so to speak. And so, the thing is, I would want to make it extremely cheap
Yeah,
because I want to have impact. You see what I mean? You see
yeah,
what happens with professionalization in courseworks is that you get certain price points, and of course, then you're automatically excluding people.
yeah.
This is where I'd really like to be able to work with a foundation, if I could find a foundation where they're in it to basically provide it for free.
I'll give you
So
some context. So what you want to reach out to, because obviously what you're doing there is part of personal development, but it's not. It's personal development for each individual, but it's more societal
it is. It's just
development.
social. It's more social. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
there's
more.
social development or community development or society development. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
but obviously a lot of people in the personal development space care about that. Yeah,
Oh
and
yeah.
actually
Oh,
they're all
absolutely.
American.
Yeah, yeah,
They're
yeah.
all
Oh,
American.
yeah,
In that
yeah,
space.
yeah,
So if you
yeah.
found somebody like a Dr. John DeMartini, do you know
Uh,
John?
well, I'm not. I know his name. That's
Yeah.
all. Yeah,
Well, he teaches psychology and physiology, and he's about leaving legacy and impact on the
yeah.
planet. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So, and he's an academic.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
he'll get it. Yeah. And he's got a foundation. Like, yeah. And he's one of the top sort of like educators to entrepreneurs, top entrepreneurs.
yeah.
Somebody like
I
that.
know his name actually. I need to look him up. Do you know what his website is by any chance?
Yeah. It's just drjohndemartini.com, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
I follow him on LinkedIn. He's very active on LinkedIn, and I got a company page which I always post his content on, which is called MA Consultancy. So
Okay.
if you actually looked for me, he's a friend of mine. I can't remember if is he a friend of mine? No, I think he's a second degree friend of mine. He's a friend of a friend of mine.
Yeah.
But I get his content, so I think I follow him. Yeah, because you only get content if you follow them or your friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So I follow him, and he puts a lot of content on. Somebody like him would be interested. There's
Yeah.
also somebody like Sharon Lecter.
Yeah. I don't know
Wrote
who
the.
she is.
She's co-authored the book Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Oh yes, I know that book. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because that's about societal change as
Yeah.
well. Really, yeah, it's about mindset change and that sort of thing. So it's about finding somebody who's got a high profile and a foundation, and they want to solve this problem of the sides and that. And I think most of these people are good people, like I mean, they want to get involved.
Yeah.
They're
Right.
free thinkers and
Yeah. Yeah.
similar to
Well,
us.
if I'm just trying to find John Diamantis, and
D
there's quite.
Martini, like martini, shaken but not stirred, but with a DE in front in the big. It's not separated like they do in South Africa. It's all joined up, so it's D Martini. You'll find him. He's high profile. Also, Brian Tracy's another one.
Yeah. Yeah. He's probably he's yeah.
Zig
Uh,
Ziglar, although Zig's dead, the Zig Ziglar Foundation, which is run by Tom Ziglar, his son.
yeah.
Yeah. There was another one I thought of a minute ago that I thought would be a good one for you, which would be Napoleon Hill.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Those are people who are, very much high profile in the entrepreneurial space, and so, I'm sort of coming more from the academic side.
Yeah,
So
but they all have philanthropic
yeah,
natures, and so they all have foundations and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah. So if for example they decide they want to invest in their foundation and improving society, so
yeah,
that the entrepreneurs will have a better place to become entrepreneurs within. Yeah.
yeah.
So
Okay,
they're free thinkers. They are. They're people who would understand your cause.
yeah,
and have the money to impact it massively on a large basis, like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're getting me out of my box. You know, I'm thinking more of, you know, I mean, I hadn't thought of that as an outlet, actually.
No, but a lot of those people are into legacy building. See,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and
Mm.
it's a legacy project, isn't it? You know, improving society and trying to get the divide, you know,
Unite the divide and stuff.
diminished, yeah, diminished, if you like, because it's in my lifetime, it's never been bigger than it is now.
Oh,
Everyone's polar opposite, you know,
yeah,
everyone's on one side or the other, and nobody can see the other side's point of view in any way, shape, or form. You know,
yeah,
I watch it, I laugh at it. I've had conversations on my podcast about this. You know, the whole Black Lives Matter, the whole black white thing, right?
yeah, right.
Well, I laugh about the black white thing, right? I don't laugh about it, it's sad, but I laugh about the way people can't see it, right? And just how dumb people are, is that the grey is so many rainbows of grey and they all hate each other as well.
Yeah,
It's not a black white thing as well, and they actually they cloud the actual problem by thinking it's a black white problem, but it's
yeah.
actually a my side versus your side problem.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really matter the color. You know, I've seen black people hate black people just as much as black people not get on with white people, and vice versa. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's not a color thing, and this is what causes the problem. It seems to be a color thing because often it's like with the police with the Floyd incident. One of them was Mexican or something. One of them was mixed race. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's not a color thing. It's a power thing a lot of the time. Just like in society, people have been saying that, you know, all the slave trade, you know, we should dismantle them and break them up and everything because they were slave owners and they were doing bad things. Slavery is still going on. It's just economic slavery now, and all the companies are enslaving the people. Nothing's
yeah,
really changed. Nothing's changed at all, like, you know.
yeah,
But nobody's looking in and going, actually, the system hasn't changed. You know what I mean? There's still people at the top, and there's people having to work their backside off for very little at the bottom.
yeah,
You know what I mean? The system hasn't changed. It's just it's not as obvious as when it was like white supremacy, you know, white whatever they call them, the slave owners, and then black slaves. Now it's multicolored owners and multicolored slaves because it's not a color thing. It's a have and have not thing. Really, it's a societal thing.
yeah,
Like, you know.
yeah, yeah,
And that's the problem is when people look at these situations simplistically, like they did with Brexit and they do with Trump and walls and not walls, and they look at it as one thing versus another, they often
yeah,
miss the 100 things in the middle that make it a much more complex sort of reason and decision. Than it's the
yeah,
same as like with the masks and the, you know, masks and not masks, you know, lock in and let out. You know, people can only see it from one point of view as like, well, nobody should go out. They spread the virus. Everyone should go out because otherwise the economy is going to bust. They see it from one perspective and one point of view, when
yeah,
actually the solution should, my solution would be more complex. Like, you know, if you're under 50 and you've got much less chance of spreading the disease, get out. If you're over 50, stay in. But if you've got respiratory problems, stay in. If you know, it's a much more complex situation than just go in or stay out. You know.
yeah. It is absolutely, yeah. Any other suggestions? I mean, what you've got me thinking about is maybe thinking about how to do podcasting, and if I were to go in that direction rather than blogging.
Yeah, well, you know, for me, I wish I'd gone into. I did blogging for 15 years. I wish I did podcasting 15 years ago because I'd probably be like one of the top podcasters right now with the amount of content I'm putting out and whatever.
Right.
Yeah, and also getting in there early is quite good. Now, actually, a podcast, there's only about 6,000. I think 600,000 podcasts in the world.
Yeah.
If you imagine most websites got a blog on it, but you know, bloggers is probably something like 600,000 podcasts. I'd say there'd be at least 600 million blogs.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah. So podcast is still early in its infancy. I joined it early. I'm never often the real early adopter, but I'm always the next wave of early adopters.
Right. Yeah.
So if I'm doing some of these things, it's still early, but soon it'll be the mass market. And then, it just depends. Blogging never hit the mass market. Blogging has always been a niche thing.
Right. Yeah, it has.
which
Yeah.
which is why I was using it not really as the blogging platform, but as a feeder to my social media, which were mass market.
Yeah. I was going to say, can you put your website address into the LinkedIn message as well, so I can look it up to see what you are doing, and
Yeah, well, a good thing, a good way of actually seeing what I do is by Google searching me or having a look at the hashtag Mike Armstrong.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I put the hashtag Mike Armstrong on all my content.
Yeah.
And at
Okay.
the moment, the mass market don't know to look for that content because
Yeah.
I'm not spending millions of pounds on advertising or putting it out there somewhere. I'm
Yeah.
drip feeding, but sooner or later I'll end up being interviewed on how I created all this content and on people wanting to know how. When you reach an end goal, people want to know how you did it, but they never want to know how you're doing it whilst you're doing it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I
You know.
understand. So who do you have as your connections? I mean, who do you link up who are sort of on a similar trajectory as you are?
Well, I'm sort of like since the lockdown, I've been going into globalization and I've been vibrating, I suppose, connecting with, reaching out to and then reaching out to me with people who are either in the free thinking space, so free thinkers, thought
Yeah.
leaders, yeah,
Yeah.
people into personal development, personal empowerment, yeah,
Yeah.
people into business coaching or life coaching or holistic living.
Hmm.
These are the people because they're the things I'm interested in. So there's the people who've got shared,
Right.
commonality, communal goals. So I've had on my podcast, for example, I've had a lot of speakers, a lot of coaches, a lot of holistic practitioners, a lot of networkers, big networkers, power networkers.
Yeah.
So there are probably people I can introduce you to who will be able to help you with this. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
definitely people. I've already introduced you to some people who, like for example, I already mentioned earlier today Bob Berg, but Bob Berg's a giver, and he'd probably want to solve society's issues. Now,
Yeah.
Bob Berg's like a me. He's a very similar person to me, but he's been around the block a lot longer, and he's impacted. He's had some best-selling books and all the rest of that. So he's
Yeah.
probably got. I don't know if he's got a foundation or not, but my guess is he would have.
Right.
I've got a
Right.
foundation at the moment. It's just not got no money in it. It's just got education and information. And
Yeah.
I'm willing to share that to whoever needs it. But at
Yeah.
some point, I'll have a foundation which actually I'll be able to turn around and say, you know what? I'll chuck a load of money at that because it's a great message and I'll build the infrastructure to put that message out there to where it needs to go out there to. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But actually, you don't even need the infrastructure though. If you actually created a load of YouTube videos with your messaging on and just
Yeah.
proactively kept sharing that to other thought leaders and wherever, you should be able to get that message out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just
Well,
it does
I was
take time and effort though. It's not easy.
No, no, I understand that, but I was thinking for yourself, if I were in your shoes, so to speak, I would be wanting to network with people who are on a similar sort of journey, so that you could learn, more tricks of the trades or new trends that would help to, amplify.
Yeah, well, I study a lot of all the people who are in the places I want to be. I study them now. So they're sort of 5, 6, 7 maybe core areas of my life. I want to be the best that I can be in, which I
Yeah,
believe I could be the best in the world at. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, so they're the areas I'm interested in becoming, one of the best people on the planet at.
yeah,
And so I study the people who are in the best people on the planet positions in those areas right now.
yeah. What
So as a
who
sales and marketing speaker and coach, there's a guy called Grant Cardone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
don't know.
he's basically 20 years older than me, living the life I will be living in 20 years' time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
he's also massive in the property development space. But I also listen to people like Kevin Green and Robert Kiyosaki, who's the other co-author of Rich Dad Poor Dad. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
they teach you how to, and Warren Buffett, they'll teach you how to deal with wealth when you get it. So I'm training myself how to be able to deal with investments and all the different things as and when I hit the tipping point in my speaking and podcasting and business, and the money comes in. I know what to do with it
yeah,
when it
right.
does. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I learn all of the things I know that the next 20 years are going to give me. I
mm,
learn them so I'm prepared, ready for them,
yeah, yeah,
So I also listen to Dr. John Demartini because he's the leading authority on psychology and physiology in the personal development space. And I'm in the personal development space, and I love those two topics. I
Yeah.
love what makes the brain and the body tick, and that's, because there are very successful people on this planet and not very successful people on this planet, and it's only the physiology and the psychology that are the difference between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So the more you can learn about your psychology and your physiology, the more you can improve your own self, but also all those other people around you that you're looking to impact. Yeah. And then I
Yeah.
study people like Les Brown, who's like one of the top speakers on the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, motivational and whatever. I study Brian Tracy, who's one of the most best authors and readers on the planet. Yeah. So I follow all the best people who are in the spaces I want to be the best at, because if you're going to learn off someone, you might as well learn off the best. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just looking on LinkedIn to see if I can find. I don't know if this is the right guy. I don't think it is.
Who is it?
John DeMartini.
Dr. John it is, yeah. Dr. John DeMartini.
Let's see if I can find it.
You'll definitely find it. On LinkedIn, just type in Doctor and then John, John, and DeMartini, DeMartini. Who else? Who's got foundations? I'm trying to think. Who else have I met? I do a lot in the personal development space, see. So I've been listening to a lot of people over the years. I think definitely Sharon Lecter or Napoleon Hill would be worth. It's just all about who you resonate with. So I'd be contacting as many of them as I could and just saying, listen, have they got any interest in doing this?
Yeah, one of the challenges is when you're dealing with people in the stratosphere is that it's very difficult to make connections.
Yeah, but it's very difficult to make connections when you think it's very difficult to make connections, and it's far easier to make connections when you think it's far easier to make connections. Yeah. So that's like a mental block. That is like that's because you've never actually made connections. So for me, I don't have those mental blocks because I've spent 30 years making connections.
Mm-hmm.
But you've spent your career, if you like, dealing with the people who you've been dealing with. So you haven't had to reach out to new people so much. They come to you. Don't they? In that medical world, the people come to you because they always need someone, and once you're trained, they come to you because you've got to practice and they need you. But I've been in the world of reaching out to people, selling, sales, marketing, whatever, for a long time, and so I reach out to these people. I don't even think nothing of it. I just send a message to them.
Yeah, it looks as though he just had an event yesterday, actually.
Yeah, he did. He had a live in the evening, I think.
Yeah, right.
But he does them quite regular. He does a lot of events. But yeah, so all I'm saying to you is that your perspective at the moment is these people would be difficult to reach out to. But actually, the more successful people are, the more interpersonal development and legacy they are, the easier they are to reach out to.
Yeah. No, I have no problems of doing it. It's just a question of strategy. I mean, I've done it before, but
it's usually about offering a win. To me, it's always about win-win. A win-win situation, a win-win relationship.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So like, I usually just say, I reach out to people all the time for my podcast, and I just say, listen, I love your message. I'd love to share it to my, global audience of entrepreneurs who maybe haven't heard it. If you want to come on my podcast, I'd love to get you on. And I'd love you to share your message to more people. That's how I sort of approach podcasting. And, I usually get I get a high percentage. Not many people say no, but again, I tend to know who I'm sending the message to as well and make sure it's the right people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think you've given me some food for thought. I appreciate your time spending with me. So
brilliant. And I'm on the end of the phone and the end of LinkedIn and WhatsApp, and I am always willing to help. So as long as I'm not on another Zoom or a podcast, if you need more help or more ideas, I've always got loads. So just give me a ring.
Yeah,
Stay in touch.
yeah, we can. I use LinkedIn more. I just make sure that I think we're linked. Yeah, of course we're linked up.
Yeah, we're connected on LinkedIn. So yeah, so follow me on LinkedIn, and I'm always sharing content. If you can like and comment on my content, it helps my content go far, and I'll like and comment on yours as well. And you know, that's how you help each other to grow.
Yeah, it is indeed. Yeah. Any other last suggestions?
No, I think what I'll do is I need to sit and think about who I've had on and stuff, and then what I'll probably do is introduce you to a few people.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, actually, there's a guy called Robert Butwin, which I met recently. Have you met Robert?
Nope.
Okay, he goes to that speed networking event, so I'm surprised you haven't met him. But he's like me, similar, very similar character.
Oh, I see. If he's on the speed net, yeah, there's a lot of people there that you know. I may not put the name to the face, but I
you'll recognize them.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, Robert's got a very similar personality characteristics as me. We're like as if we're separated at birth, except he's in America, I'm in the UK.
Okay.
But he is a connector of people and likes helping people and stuff, and he's a speaker and all of that. But he's got, again, probably, I think he's in his 70s. I was going to say he's got 20 years on me. I think he might have 30 years on me. And he's been operating in the States, so he may have some more contacts. I've only been in the personal development space since 2017, so like 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And he's been in it for longer.
Well, if you could just type some of these names and suggestions into the LinkedIn post, because it's, you know, I've been, you know, it would be helpful.
Yes, I'll definitely do that. Okay, I'll probably do it after 6 or 7 this evening because I'm on a call straight away now, and I'm on calls right the way up till about 7, I think. So, and then I'll see you on LinkedIn and on the speed network, and if you're back there, because I'm going back there again Thursday.
I might be myself.
Okay.
All right, Mike. Thanks for your time.
Brilliant. Have a great day. All the best. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Okay. Bye now.
Right. There's nothing else left to say other than have a great day. I know I will. And thanks very much for listening. Cheers. Bye-bye.